Sonos is finally girding itself for the smart speaker wars, with Amazon's Echo line of speakers proving a surprise hit and the usage of digital assistants growing generally. Wireless speaker pioneer Sonos has launched its first voice-enabled speaker, the Sonos One. This $199 device taps into the same Alexa assistant that Amazon plants in its own hardware at some point in 2018. Sonos says it will add support for the rival Google Assistant as well. It is generally accepted that current smart speakers like the Echo and Google Home, the devices for which such assistants are mainly designed, are mediocre when used as speakers. Given Sonos' reputation for steering above average audio quality, the hope is that the One provides the smarts of an Echo and, eventually, a Home without skimping on sound. In many ways, that's exactly what the Sonos One does. It runs circles around the Echo and Home in the audio department, and it does nearly all of the same Alexa things you can do with an Amazon-made device. The One makes sense for someone who has a set of Sonos speakers already and is curious to see how an Echo-like machine would fit into their lifestyle. At the same time, Spotify users will quickly notice that the One isn't totally finished at launch. We detail the issues with Spotify playback below. And most of what's good about it also applies to Sonos Play One speaker, which has been around for years. Finally, while Sonos' approach to speaker control remains easy for anyone to pick up, the company still has a habit of forcing users to do things on its terms. The hardware and large goodbye physical buttons. The Sonos One looks, for the most part, like a mildly redesigned Sonos Play One. It's the same size 6.36 by 4.69 by 4.69 in and weight 4.08 pounds as its predecessor, and it shares the same squat rectangular shape, its rounded sides blanketed with a large speaker grille. A proprietary power plug sits flush with the bottom of the device, while the back has an Ethernet port and a reset button. It's not truly a wireless speaker. The One works over Wi-Fi, but it needs to be plugged into an outlet, just like an Echo or any other Sonos speaker before it. Specs at a glance: Sonos One size 6.36 by 4.69 by 4.69 inches, weight 4.08 pounds, amplifier 2 Class D digital amplifiers, speakers 1 midwoofer, 1 tweeter, connectivity 802.11 BG, 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi, 10,100 megabits per second, Ethernet port supported, audio formats MP3, WMA, AAC, OGG, FLAC, ALAC, AIFF, WAV supported, OS, iOS, Android, Mac, Windows supported voice assistants, Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant plan for 2018, supported voice-controlled music services, Amazon Music, Pandora, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, Spotify plan for late 2017, price $199, £199, €229, release date October 24. The whole thing comes in an all white or all black finish. Both of them feature that understated, mature aesthetic that Sonos has gotten down pat over the years. People will not confuse the One with an air freshener. It feels smooth and solidly constructed, with just the right amount of heft. Style is subjective, of course, but I don't think this will look gaudy or out of place on the typical kitchen counter and nightstand. My only nitpick is that it's long past time for Sonos to come out with a speaker built to withstand the elements. For now, the One is strictly an indoor affair. Also, Sonos has confusingly removed the mounting socket that was built into the Play One. If you're the type who used that as part of a larger setup, you'll have to do a little more handiwork. The biggest physical changes from the Play One appear on the top of the device. There are no hard buttons here. Instead, Sonos has transplanted the touch controls from newer speakers like the Play 5. There are tappable buttons for pausing and controlling volume, while swiping across the flat mat lid lets you skip tracks. This all works fine. Also on the top are a microphone toggle and a small LED notification light. Sonos seems keen on avoiding complaints about consumer privacy here, so tapping the mic icon turns the built-in microphones off completely. A small light next to the mic button lets you know its status. If it's lit up, Alexa is listening. If it's not lit, it's not listening. Below that is a thin LED light that blinks whenever you and Alexa interact. All of this was simple and effective during my 2 weeks of testing, though the implementation of the LED light seems impractical. Whereas the blue light that runs around the edge of an activated Echo can be seen from across a room, you have to stand directly above the Sonos One to see if Alexa is actually listening. Thankfully, the One plays the familiar Alexa chime whenever you call on the assistant, giving you an audio cue. To ensure that Alexa can actually hear you, the top of the speaker includes a far-field, 6-microphone array that's aided by an adaptive noise suppression algorithm. In practice, the One is about as effective at picking up voice commands as a Google Home or an Amazon Echo, not much more, not much less. If you sit in a quiet room about 10 to 15 feet away from the speaker, you can typically speak at normal volume and be heard. Back away or introduce some background noise, an air conditioner, for instance, or music playing from the speaker itself, and you have to raise your voice. Stand behind a nearby wall or closed door and you have to yell. Like every other voice-enabled speaker, the mic could be stronger, and you'll inevitably have to repeat yourself every now and then. But it's adequate. Page 2. Pairing the Sonos One with Alexa isn't the fastest process in the world, but it's straightforward. Setting up the speaker itself is as simple as tapping a few prompts on your phone, but you wind up having to go back and forth between apps multiple times to link your Ring services to each account and to voice-enable the ones that can be voice-enabled today. Sonos walks you through the process easily enough that it's hard to see many people having problems, but it's a bit tedious. Once everything is up and running, the Sonos One works like any other Sonos speaker, just with Alexa attached. You control what's playing through the Sonos mobile app or a Sonos controller app for Windows or Mac. The former has received a slight visual overhaul with the Sonos One's launch. The major addition is a bottom-mounted navigation bar that lets you quickly switch between a My Sonos tab, favorite music, podcasts, and radio stations, a Browse tab for looking through Ring services and music stored locally on your device, a Rooms tab to monitor and group together the audio those with multiple Sonos speakers have registered in different rooms in a house, and the usual search and settings tabs. Both the PC app and the mobile app are simple enough to not be annoying, and sending music out to different rooms remains a delight. But the mobile app in particular has clear space for lining. Putting your favorite playlists and podcasts in the My Sonos section speeds the interface up considerably, but if you have more than a couple of services tied to your account, you usually have to make 4 or 5 taps and dig into layers of submenus to aggregate everything. I found the search function to be overly granular, too. You can just search for WTF with Marc Maron, for instance, and expect that podcast to pop up on one of your connected services. You have to scroll to the Podcasts and Shows section of the search menu, then run a search, then click through a couple of submenus to play the episode you want in your app of choice. I got used to all of this quickly enough, and it's worth noting that I used a beta version of the app, but there's room for refinement. An Apple Watch app would be nice, too. Page 3. The Sonos One's way around these self-inflicted complications is Alexa. There's less need to tap through a bunch of menus when you can just have a virtual assistant play your stuff for you. And when everything works, you can certainly see why having voice controls in a speaker like this is so convenient. Tell Alexa to play Terrible Love by The National in the kitchen and, provided you've linked the appropriate Ring services, it will do so without questions. There's still a slight pause that comes with every interaction with Alexa, so talking to the assistant never feels fully natural. That's an issue with all Alexa devices, though for what it is, the One is typically quick to reply and execute whatever command you make. Beyond that, Alexa can tap into nearly all of the same skills on the Sonos One as it can on the Echo, so you can still order pizza, call an Uber, check the traffic, control compatible smart home devices, and hear all the cat facts you want. Alexa's App Store remains riddled with bloatware, but accessing the assistant here often feels identical to doing so on an Echo. It's still a little creepy but often useful. It's not a totally 11 experience, though. The biggest issue with the One is that you can only control a handful of Ring services through Alexa at launch. If you don't use Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, or TuneIn, you're stuck going through the app and starting up tracks the old-fashioned way. You can still get plenty of podcasts and radioing out of those, and you can still use Alexa to do basic functions like pausing, changing tracks, and adjusting volume through the dozens of non-integrated services that already work with the Sonos platform. That's great. But there are glaring holes in the Alexa experiment. Sonos says that voice support for Spotify, by far the most popular paid music service with some 60 million paying subscribers, will come later this year. Until then, though, the One is functionally little more than a Play One with some voice controls. Whether services like Apple Music, with its 30 million subscribers, or Tidal will ever gain voice control support is up in the air. Google Play Music and YouTube Music, meanwhile, may need to wait on the Google Assistant's arrival sometime next year. Given how long it took Sonos to bring Alexa into the fold, though, the exact timing of that integration is anyone's guess. Having to use a separate assistant to activate them would likely introduce some clunkiness, too. The Sonos One also lacks the Echo's new voice calling abilities, as well as the Zigbee SmartHome protocol support that will come with a new Amazon Echo Plus. The latter limits its ability as a smart home hub, though it's no better or worse than the normal Echo in that regard. There's also the issue of being unable to control a Sonos system directly from third-party apps other than Spotify. Thankfully, Sonos says it is expanding that sort of support to Pandora and Tidal later this year, with Audible and iHeartRadio slated for sometime in 2018, but everyone else will still be coerced to manage what music they want to send to their speakers from the Sonos app, not through the apps dedicated to their respective services. The One isn't immune from the occasional performance hiccups that come with most Alexa speakers, either. There will be points where the assistant just can't process more intricate requests unless you follow a specific script. At one point, I asked the One to turn on the MLB playoffs while a baseball game was ongoing, and I somehow wound up on a Venezuelan pop radio station. To get where I wanted, I had to look up the station on which the game was playing in one of the supported services, then specifically ask for that. Alexa can also be overly sensitive when it comes to acknowledging requests. On multiple occasions, the speaker confused podcast hosts saying words like complex and Netflix with me saying Alexa, then chimed as if it thought I was about to issue a command. Part of this is due to Alexa speakers like the One not being tailored for specific voices, but those sorts of misunderstandings are hard to accept. One other gripe: when you request audio through voice commands, you're rendered incapable of scrubbing through it within the app. You can tell Alexa to fast forward or rewind, but it will only do so for 30 seconds at a time. This is particularly annoying if you want to revisit an unfinished podcast. To gain full playback controls, you have to start your chosen program from within the Sonos app. This doesn't seem purposeful. Page 4. Enlarge the Sonos One next to a Google Home. The audio quality of speakers like the Sonos One can vary depending on their location in your home. Generally, you want to give each speaker as much space as possible. But because the layout and spacing and sound-absorbing materials within everyone's home are different, it's difficult to objectively measure the sound of a speaker like this in a meaningful way. It's also worth noting that I tested a pre-production model, so there's a chance, albeit a small one, that my experience will not entirely mirror the device that goes on sale later this month. Based on what I've heard, though, it still seems safe to say that the Sonos One sounds a lot better than the Echo and Google Home. There's a level of clarity and transparency here that just doesn't exist with those devices. The mids are clean and the highs refreshingly crisp. Cymbal hits and S sounds rarely sound sibilant. It's a smooth listen, and the whole thing can get good and loud even before it hits max volume, though you won't want to blast it all the way if you're sitting close by, since it suffers from a little distortion at that point. Basically, it sounds like the Play One. And that's good. The Echo sounds muddier and more veiled by comparison, and the Home can't match the depth and body the One affords most tracks. That said, the One is still a small mono speaker, so it can only fight physics so much. Its bass thumps along tightly but never gets that deep. Considering there's just a lone mid-woofer powering the low end, alongside two Class D amplifiers and one tweeter. For the treble, that's not a surprise. Hip-hop and electro tracks lose a bit of punch as a result. And while the One provides an impressive level of detail for a 6-inch speaker, it can't perfectly distinguish each piece of a complex track without jumbling things up somewhat. It still pushes the mids and low mids ahead of everything else, because that's where hardware this size is best equipped to focus. But the treble it can cover is managed well, and the bass isn't nearly the kind of disaster it can be on many other small speakers. All of this can improve if you activate Sonos TruePlay feature, which tailors the frequency response to the acoustics of your room. You can read more about how that works in our Play 5 review from a couple of years back. In short, it takes about a minute of waving your phone around your room to set up, which is fine, and I did notice a slight boost to clarity with the effect enabled. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but there was a difference, and you may notice it more depending on how your room is laid out. Enlarge the bottom of the Sonos One. The main way you're meant to beef up the One's sound, though, is to pair it with other Sonos speakers. The company certainly has plenty of devices to sell you. Indeed, simply pairing the one with another Sonos device dramatically widens the soundstage and puts more meat into whatever you're playing. It's great. Bafflingly, though, Sonos has made it so you can't pair the one up with an existing Play 1 speaker for stereo listening. You can pair it with a second one, or you can have two Play 1s, but you can't mix and match. Sonos says it plans to continue selling the Play 1 going forward, even though that device also starts at $199. The company did not specify if this could change down the road, but not having it is a blow for current Sonos owners who would like to slot in the abilities of a smart speaker to the quality audio of their existing investment. The one also does nothing to stop Sonos aversion to Bluetooth or wired audio connectors. This has been the case forever, but there's still no way to link up any non-Sonos devices through those connections. The company says it will add AirPlay 2 support to its lineup sometime next year, which will allow iOS users to beam whatever has playing on their devices straight to their speakers. That's great, but it should take the next step soon after. Page 5. If you don't really care about sound quality, there's little point in paying $199 for the Sonos One when an Echo or Google Home has all the same smarts for less. If you are an audio geek but aren't invested in the Sonos ecosystem, the $50 Echo Dot should remain the most cost-effective way to add voice controls to your setup. What Sonos is really getting at is the same niche that Apple and Google plan to attack with their upcoming HomePod and Google Home Max speakers, respectively. It's too soon to say exactly how those, or the aforementioned Echo Plus, compare to one from an audio standpoint, but Sonos will be undercutting Google and Apple on price by about half, and it already has a family of high-quality companion speakers to sell along with it. If it's going to play Switzerland and bring both Alexa and Google Assistant on board, too, Sonos can make a strong pitch for that cross-section of audiophiles and would-be smart speaker buyers. The delay on Spotify voice controls means there's no rush to buy the one right away, though. To buy a one is to use a voice-controlled Play 1 and deal with a bundle of annoyances that aren't quite deal-breakers. It's still a good product, because the Play 1 is an excellent speaker, other smart speakers are not, and Alexa can be useful for the right tasks. Even if it has issues both new and familiar, the one's central formula is just too hard for Sonos to mess up. The good, much richer audio quality than an Amazon Echo or Google Home compact, understated design is unlikely to look gaudy anywhere in the home mic array, while not perfect, is generally reliable for picking up voice commands, can tap into virtually all the same Alexa skills as an Echo. $199 price point is less than eventual cost of Google Home Max or Apple HomePod. The bad: no way to control Spotify with voice commands at launch, no stated plan for Apple Music, Tidal, or Google Play Music voice commands on the horizon, no Bluetooth or wired audio connectors. Redesigned Sonos mobile app can be a bit clunky, no way to pair Sonos One and Sonos Play 1 speakers together in stereo. The ugly: it's really built to work with a family of Sonos speakers. Buying into those can get wildly expensive in a hurry.